Hi there. I'm from Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region, and I'm going to present to you about the services that we offer. My name is Trish Sabrin, and I'm the Outreach Manager at Women's Crisis Services. And here we go. So we'll start with some stats. So did you know 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual violence, most commonly by an intimate partner? Every 6 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner. We know that approximately 70% of domestic violence is not reported. So only about 30% does actually get reported. And there's a stat here, $7.4 billion per year is the approximate cost of intimate partner violence on Canadian society. So to bring more local stats, particularly within our region, Waterloo Region, every hour and a half, Waterloo Regional Police receive a domestic violence call. So if you remember from the last slide, only 30% actually gets reported. So if, theoretically speaking, everyone were to report domestic violence, this number would be 3 times as high approximately. So about every half hour, Waterloo Regional Police would get a call. And just a quick recap, so domestic violence comes in many forms, all of which include attempts to maintain power and control over the thoughts, beliefs, and behavior of a person by creating fear and or dependency. I'll read our mission. So in partnership with our community, Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region empowers and supports women and children to move beyond violence and abuse through the provision of safe shelter, education, and outreach services. Our vision is a community free from violence and abuse in any of its forms. So we do serve women and children in our community who have experienced intimate partner or familial violence. And I'll speak a bit more about our services in a second here. Just a bit about our history. So we have been around since 1978, so just over 40 years now. In 1978, Haven House in Cambridge and Anselma House in Kitchener both opened as 2 separate shelters. In 2001, the 2 merged and became Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. So we do still have 2 shelters, and I'll speak to that in just a second here. I'll leave this slide here for a moment if you want to take a peek at some of the other information. Okay. So as mentioned, we have Anselma House and Haven House. So each shelter has 45 beds, and we operate at capacity or near capacity all the time. So we also have a number of programs that are offered within the shelter. I do have a slide about that a little bit later, so I think I will save that for now. So we do have the 2 shelters, we have outreach services, and then we have our support lines. Outreach is somewhat similar to shelter services in that we support women in the community who are experiencing domestic violence. So we do risk assessment, safety planning, we can help with housing applications, connecting with legal supports, really anything that the person needs. So we do tailor our approach, and whatever the situation is for that particular person, we do everything that we can to make sure that they're properly resourced in the community and that they're safe. Support lines are operating 24/7. So every day of the year, our support lines are staffed by our staff, our residential support staff. And we also have an online chat feature now. So folks who want to call in can absolutely call our support line, or if they prefer to type in, we can also do typing back and forth on our online chat. So just another statistic here, we see approximately 500 women come through our shelter every year, and we see about 1,000 come through outreach services. So they don't need to stay in shelter to get our support. Also, in our shelters, approximately half of residents are children. So half children, half moms, or half women, I guess. And the kids who are in shelter are typically, not always, but they're typically younger kids. So about 8 years old and younger is what we see most commonly in shelter, although sometimes we do get some teens as well. Okay, so a few photos. On the left-hand side is the outside of Anselma House in Kitchener. On the right-hand side is a triple room. I think this is at Haven House. So as you can see, this would be a room for a larger family. So let's say there's a mom and 4 kids. So you can see this first bedroom that we see most clearly. Two kids could share that bedroom. Then there's a doorway. You can keep it open or you can close it. Through the doorway would be another couple of beds for another couple of kids. And then last bedroom there that you can just barely see would be potentially where mom's staying. So it's great because you can close the doors for privacy or someone's having a nap to keep things a little bit quiet, but they do have quite a bit of space to stretch out. And this triple room would share 1 bathroom. So each room, whether it's a single, a double, or a triple, has its own bathroom. So people aren't needing to share bathrooms, which is, it's important. Okay, now on the left-hand side, we have the common area at Anselma House. So you can see a TV at the far end there with some couches so people can spread out, they can watch TV, they can hang out. There's board games, books, movies, that sort of stuff. On the right-hand side of that picture is a dining table. So what you can't see, there's a few more dining tables. You know, people can do their homework or eat or whatever they want to do over there. And then in the back, you can see a playroom. So the younger folks can make use of the toys and stuff in the playroom. And then through those windows there is our courtyard. So private, secure courtyard area so people can get some fresh air, some sunshine, and it's pretty large so they can spread out and get some exercise as well. On the right-hand side is a picture of our kitchen. So this is the one shared kitchen that all residents would share in shelter. And then on the right-hand side of that picture, through that doorway, is where you would find our food and nutrition coordinator. So they are cooking meals for the shelter residents, and they have their own separate kitchen for that. So that's a for health and safety standards, they've got their own industrial kitchen back there to prepare food for residents. So, okay, I alluded to our programs a bit earlier. I'll speak to them now. So food and nutrition, I just mentioned, each shelter has a food and nutrition coordinator, and they are responsible for preparing a hot dinner every night of the week for residents. We do also provide breakfast and lunch. Typically, if possible, residents would prepare their own breakfast and lunch, and we just provide the ingredients to do so. Food and nutrition coordinators can also offer sort of like classes, things like cooking on a budget, menu planning, that sort of thing. F&CS integrated service. So we have one family and children's services worker out of each shelter. So that is their home base. And it's really helped to break down some of the barriers and some of the apprehension around potentially working with family and children's services workers. It really helps to build the relationship as more of a support as opposed to something to be afraid of. Individual counseling, we have 2 clinical support workers who provide counseling within shelter, and one of them actually does counseling outside of shelter as well. So they are kind of part of the outreach program in that way. They can provide counseling out in the community in women's homes. Trusting Loving Connections is one of the groups that our clinical support workers co-facilitate with Family and Children's Services. It's around attachment parenting. Access to nurse practitioners. So we do have nurse practitioners come into shelter regularly to address the medical needs of residents at that particular time. Youth education programs. So this is relatively new for us. We have one outreach worker who is assigned to facilitating youth education programs in the community. And so they do sort of short programs, hour or 2 hours, around things like healthy relationships and really trying to work from a preventive place, educating people while they're young around what is a healthy relationship, what isn't, what are some red flags, things like that. Move myself here. Moving beyond support group. So again, this is a group that is facilitated by our clinical support workers. It is only within shelter, so it's not open to community clients. This is it's a psychoeducational group to help educate women about their experiences of domestic violence, to share with each other, learn from each other, and to move beyond those experiences. Safe Steps. It's another program facilitated by our clinical support worker that is for both, that's for community clients only. And really the idea is that the participants in this group have already left their abusive situation and are ready to move forward. They're in a little bit of a different place than, for example, someone who's just come into shelter. This program is for it's for mom and all of her kids, again, around processing their experiences and working to move forward. Clinical psychologist, we have a partnership with a psychologist. So she comes on site to both shelters 1 day per week. And we also have a music therapist, that's a couple more down, a music therapist who also comes into each shelter 1 day per week. So those are really unique services, and they're very, very commonly accessed by shelter residents. They're very popular. Rural connections, so we do make sure that we partner and connect regularly with our rural partner agencies in a number of ways. We do have some referrals that formally come through from our rural partners. That's typically for outreach services. And lastly, child and youth programs. So we do have child and youth workers at both shelters, and they do not just safety planning with the kids specifically, but they do offer a number of different programs throughout the week. So a quote from a shelter resident: "I learned that things are going to get better. I'm worth being cared for." An outreach client has said, "I learned it's not my fault and how to stay positive, even during times that weren't so positive." We do have some questions that come in about funding. So we are 75% funded through provincial funding. So we do receive funding from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, but we do rely on the community to fund 25% approximately of our operations and to keep our doors open. So that the 25% that we fundraise goes towards programming, funding beds, which are not completely funded through the government, music therapy, etc. And so throughout the year, we run various campaigns and events to raise awareness and funds. I do also just want to mention, I should have mentioned this earlier, we are a partner in the Family Violence Project, which is, it's a collaborative of agencies that provide wraparound, seamless service to victims or survivors of domestic violence, all from one location. So there's a number of partner agencies involved in that project, and it's like a one-stop shop for people who have experienced domestic violence. We're also a partner in the Resilience Project, which is another project. It endeavors to meet the needs of children and youth with the goal of building relationships between caregivers, peers, and the community. So She Is Your Neighbor is it's one of the awareness projects that I had mentioned earlier, and it's a storytelling series. It's actually a podcast. I'm just going to play a brief video clip to explain a little bit more. So if there are any questions outstanding from today's presentation, I encourage you to please find us on our website or look us up on social media and connect with us. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.